Your San Francisco 49ers, #1 in the latest Locked On Power Rankings. Who's their biggest competition this season? And what about the competition coming up in Week 4 in the Arizona Cardinals, who might not be number 32 anymore in the NFL Power Rankings? And Jimmy T got himself a title. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker. Might have been muted there at the beginning. At BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to the everydayers. We love you. We appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. I'm so excited usually to start the show that I start talking before I'm unmuted after the intro music, and it auto mutes me. So I have no choice in the matter. And all of a sudden I'm getting into the podcast. So it cuts off my welcome. So welcome everybody here. And of course, welcome to our Wednesday guest, Winky Wednesday style. That is none other than Mr. Nicholas Winkler, my former radio colleague. He's a former TV anchor. He is a game show extraordinaire and our good buddy that talks 49ers football with us every Wednesday. So appreciate you, Wink. How you feeling? We like to do a wink and the stink, but it's a little bit harder these days to do the wink and the stink segment because the Niners are just rolling, throwing up 30 points a game. #1 in the power rankings. What's happening, Wink?
Yeah, I mean, 3-0, fantastic. So, I can sneak on a little something. So I went to the game Thursday night, right? Shout out Explosivo. He put up a great tailgate before the game. That was wonderful. The hospitality, fantastic. So I'm there. I'm watching the game. I'm staying off my phone. I'm having a great time. I leave. I go get in my car. I pull up my phone. And Twitter, it just, like, if you didn't watch the game and you were looking at Twitter, I was getting old tweets late, but it was like, oh, Brock Purdy looking horrible. Oh, this Niner team looks like trash. Well, it's like, yeah, it was a slow start, but guys, relax. Like, what's going on? Everybody was so quick to get, like, so angry that they weren't just demolishing, oh, Dallas beat this team by 4. It's like, every game is different, man. They won the football game. They look good. Debo looked fantastic. McCaffrey did his thing. Brock is clearly the guy. Like, everybody just chill. Enjoy the ride, man. This is a good football team.
Did you see any fights? I feel like the 49ers fights, and maybe it's just because there's more 49ers accounts on social media that I'm looking at, but it's a weekly occurrence, and I'm hoping that you didn't get in any scrapes at the stadium in the home opener.
You know what I saw more than fights were the guys that just get too drunk and have to be, like, escorted by the medical staff out. It's like, you just spent how much money to come to this game and how much money on food and all that beer that you just drank, and you're leaving in the middle of the second quarter. Like, you're not coming back. You've just spoiled your entire night. I don't get it.
I was gonna say, how much money are you spending at these games to get drunk? Once I step inside the stadium, that's it. Like, I'm not buying alcohol in the stadium. My wife, I was at the 49ers Rams game last year in Los Angeles with my wife and some friends, and my wife was like, I want a beer. I'm like, okay, it's like $20 for a tall can. I'm like, golly. Like, how many tall cans are you drinking in there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you probably got a nice coat going, a nice base going before you went inside, right, with your cheap stuff in your tailgate. But in order to get that drunk, yeah, you got to continue the drinking inside, I believe.
And also, you're a grown man. Handle it, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to drink, okay, handle it. And if you can't,
you're not some college freshman. Like, come on.
Yeah. If you can't handle it, you're just a chump anyway. So yeah, stop fighting in the stadiums, dorks. So it's lame, and there's kids, families spending a bunch of money trying to catch a football game, and talk some smack. But come on, don't be a chump.
Yeah.
By the way,
it was actually funny. There was a family next to me, and the guy was really drunk, and he just kept yelling. And people are like, "All right, drunk guy," and he's like, "Don't worry about me. I'm staying at the Hyatt. I'm staying right over there." It's like, I'm not driving home. Don't worry, I'll drink as much as I want. It's like, all right.
Okay, cool. We get any fights? Hey, Croc, I assume the wife's not home. That was a great impression of her. I don't know what that impression would have sounded like if she was standing behind you right now.
She is not home. Nurse Stevie Crocker is on duty right now.
Okay, good deal. Taking care of folks, just like she takes care of Croc every day, no doubt. Back to the Brock Purdy conversation. Yeah, you're right. He did start slow. I wonder what the conversation would be, because 49ers fans right now, and it's funny how people flip and it's like, oh, look, I told you Jimmy is trash. He threw interceptions. You know what I mean? Like, Brock threw some interceptable balls. So I wonder what the conversation would be if those balls were caught. But, they weren't. And Brock did a great job with the game plan that was thrown at him by Don Martindale and the New York Giants defense, and they blitzed him 85% of the time, right? And he came through it. He weathered that storm, and they didn't get beat early. Nice job by his receivers and by George Kittle, playing DB, knocking the balls away, putting straps on him. But he came through it. And even if let's say in the first quarter of the game, unless it was even if it was one of them was a pick six or something, 2 interceptions, the 49ers don't lose that game still. And Brock played really well, and he came out of it, and he's seeing a lot of things for the first time. And but you do have to grade it, and that's why if you look at PFF's grades, Brock Purdy's grade might not look as good as the 49ers total ended up looking, because they're going to grade interceptable throws, an interceptable throw no matter whether it's caught or not. But still, he had a good PFF grade because he played good. And so I know some people have their favorites and they root for certain guys and they want it to go a certain way, and they're still kind of looking at Brock Purdy with a side eye because he can't make ridiculous throws. Like, man, did you see Mahomes on that one where he stepped up and kind of winged a side armor out to the deep corner route? I mean, just ridiculous stuff, right? And you're not going to have that guy, 49ers fans. But, man, Brock Purdy is so good. He's tough. He's smart. He gets the ball out quick. And I thought he did an awesome job when you look at the whole game in its totality.
I think it kind of reminds me a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo. And again, don't kill me, listeners. I'm not saying that he is Jimmy G or Jimmy G 2.0. We've heard all those comparisons. But just in the sense of you don't see a whole lot of special throws. You see a whole lot of a guy doing his job. And for the 49ers, like, that is definitely good enough, right? That's good. Mm-hmm. But you talked about some players and maybe it wasn't the guy that they wanted, or they might look at these other guys and see them do special things. It's not just the 49er fan base that views Brock that way, and I think people are trying to figure him out. I mean, I see it in my group chat where they are confused with why Brock Purdy is good. They're watching him and like, okay, we know he does his thing. Oh man, this guy, they know based off like them watching football what the quarterback position, what it looks like, throws that guys make, and they watch Brock, and it doesn't feel to them like they're watching a special quarterback. And I think that's the weird thing, because if you look at all the numbers, it says that he is very special. He's doing things at an extremely high level. If you ask Kyle Shanahan and his teammates, especially with how they're behind him right now, they think he is very special. They think he's doing very high level stuff. I strongly believe they feel like this is the guy that could potentially lead them to the promised land. But the outsiders, as well as a certain portion of the 49er fan base, they don't see the pizzazz with what he's doing. And I think some people are a little confused by what exactly he is. I think it's just a good
throw to Debo was beautiful. I mean, that was right in front of me. I'm 12 rows up from that catch, that throw. It was just like, wow, that's epic right there. That's the Brock Purdy you want to see. So he has it in there, right? Like he can make the throws. He's just missed a couple, I think, early on in the season. Yeah,
that's where his special is. It's the toughness to stand in there. He's getting blitzed on a play. He knows the blitz is coming. He's not dumping it off to a running back, right? And a lot of I've always called Kyle Shanahan's offense, goes back to Jimmy G, aggressively intermediate, right? There's answers in the offense, but there's not a lot of, getting blitzed here, running back, take it. There's not a lot of that. A lot of the throws behind the line of scrimmage are designed screens and some of those things. And, there is hot reads and some places to go with the football. But on that play, he's getting blitzed and he's like, I got enough, just barely enough time that if I'm dropping back and maybe even fading a little bit more to make sure I have time, I can get it to him. I got to throw it with anticipation. I got to throw it to a spot and hope my guy makes a play on the ball, and I got to throw it early. And that's where the special comes in for Brock Purdy. A little more of a playmaker than Garoppolo ever was. Fewer turnover-worthy throws, but you got to watch the game, and you got to realize that when you watch Brock Purdy, he did have a couple of turnover-worthy throws in that game. You watch the Raiders game, you see Jimmy Garoppolo, one of the passes he threw, it was the right read, threw with anticipation on a dig route. We've seen that a million times in Kyle Shanahan's offense, right? It's an in route. His receiver, I think it was Michael Mayer on one play, had the leverage on the inside. He threw it with anticipation. Mayer did a pretty bad job, I think, of running the route and allowing the defender to just run under it and make the play and catch it. And one of his interceptions, he's just fourth quarter trying to make a play happen, throws to his best receiver on the sideline, ends up getting picked off. I think it was Levi Wallace maybe on both of those interceptions. So every interception is not the same. Every interceptable pass doesn't get picked off. And so you just have to watch the game and understand that, people that hate Jimmy, he's not as bad as they think he is. And people who love Jimmy and were like, look at his record, Jimmy W, which is we played into it, right? Called him Jimmy W and all those things. Jimmy clearly wasn't the reason the 49ers won all the games they won under Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's a good quarterback. And you say the same thing about Brock Purdy. Like, he's a really good quarterback, and there's some special traits. And I would take Brock Purdy all day long over Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's not perfect either. And he made some mistakes early in the game, but guess what? He figured it out quickly. Kid is smart, right? Kid is tough. And kid is able to make some plays in the 49ers offense and has a ton of playmakers. There's 10 other guys on the field, right? And has a bunch of playmakers helping him out. So, all those things kind of together are true.
I think one of the things that you talked about, special traits and characteristics that Brock Purdy has, I think not getting rattled, right? When things weren't going your way. Now, I think Kyle got a little rattled and he said, hold on, we're going to reel this back in a little bit. Let's throw a screen here to Debo, throw a screen here to Christian McCaffrey. But once he kind of got in that groove, it was all right. Kyle Shanahan was like, okay, go be Brock. Go be Brock now. And then we saw Brock really bounce back at an extremely high level. So for me, the special part is being able to not get rattled, where other quarterbacks in that moment, when they don't have their fastball early on, things get weird, interceptable balls, they might start to get a little timid and a little scared. And maybe there was something like that and I missed it. But even then, his ability to say, you know what, I'm going to get back on track and I'm going to be all right. And I'm going to continue to fire. To me, those are the special things that's going to continue to have him be a really good quarterback for the 49ers.
Hold on a second, Wink. I know you got one more thing, but we got to move, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Brock Purdy, where does the quarterback come in when you start to project which teams are the best in the NFL? 49ers currently number 1. We'll check in on the Locked On Power Rankings right now. Take a peek at Week 4 and Jim Tomsula, championship head coach. That's right, coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed fits on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. And how about a couple of rookie wide receivers? Zay Flowers looks like the real deal for the Baltimore Ravens at wide receiver, and had a nice debut the first couple of weeks and is building on that success with quarterback Lamar Jackson. And after an unfortunate ACL injury to Mike Williams, first round wide receiver Quentin Johnston could be a player that comes up big in his absence, or maybe it's Joshua Palmer. We'll find out, I think, here in week number 4 who that guy is going to be stepping up for Mike Williams, for Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, and it's the same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you can make sure that your car is running smoothly at all times. We're talking brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs. My baby ran over a cone, needed a fender flare. So went to eBay Motors, looked up fender flare in my vehicle, had the green check next to it. I knew exactly which one was the right fit, and I was able to slap it on my vehicle very easily, by the way. Saved myself hundreds of dollars by going through eBay Motors. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to be a fit for your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep up your ride or die at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. So, guys, when it comes to the power rankings, it boils down to quarterback. And I know we had some more thoughts on Brock Purdy and his ability. So I'm going to go to you, Wink, first before we check in on these power rankings.
Well, it's funny that you go into the power rankings because if you look at quarterback rankings, right, it's all over the place with Brock Purdy. Like, I think the highest I saw him in one was 6th, and then the lowest I saw was like 23rd. It's like, what are these people looking at? You know, it's so drastically different over this one guy. It's like, are they watching every throw? Are they watching the adjustments? Are they? Croc, I think you were dead on. I think that they saw Shanahan saw Purdy kind of struggling a little bit and was like, I got to rebuild this kid's confidence real quick. So he did, and Brock, showed him like, yeah, you did the right thing here, and I am the man. So it's like, is he right in the middle where all these people are thinking, or is he more towards the top? We see him through 49ers eyes, right? I'm sure everybody listening to this sees him through that as well. So we watch every single snap. We're reading the practice reports. We're reading everything everybody's saying about this guy. So we have a kind of a higher thing. And I know last week we kind of went over who we would take ahead of him. Has anything changed? I mean, I think we had him, 10th or 11th last week, maybe 12th in our ranking when we were kind of going over quarterbacks we would take ahead of Brock Purdy. I think he might even be a little bit higher than that right now. Like, I love the adjustment this kid makes. He doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but it's the processing. It's what he can do when he sees the field, when it's open. Yeah, he makes the occasional bad throw, but everybody makes the occasional bad throw. So I don't know. I think he's kind of getting a bad rap from people that maybe hate the 49ers, and so they're kind of skewing it towards that a little bit.
I don't think anything changed as far as quarterback rankings for me. I think he's in the same spot he always was, because you see what his strengths are, you see what his weaknesses are, and he keeps being the same guy. And that's sort of it, where you shouldn't really be changing your rankings every single week necessarily when it comes to, players like that. One guy has a good week, like that's sort of, and I was wondering, the Miami Dolphins, actually, I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Miami Dolphins, number 2 in the NFL right now in the power rankings. They jumped up 3 spots. They're already a team that was very high, right? And now they've jumped up a little bit more in the Locked On NFL power rankings, as voted on by the Locked On hosts. They've jumped up to number 2, but they didn't jump up over the 49ers. And I don't think they should have, because of one 70-point outburst against the team who's, by the way, 31 right now in the power rankings, right? They whooped up on a team they should have. Maybe the heat and humidity played a factor as well. There's a lot going on there with that Dolphins game, but you don't all of a sudden say, Tua's MVP and the Dolphins are the best team in the league because they won one game, right? But you can say, okay, this is a really good football team, which you already knew anyway. And so that's why I'm glad the 49ers are still number 1. And I don't think anything changes with me for Brock Purdy. Like, I love what I'm seeing from Brock Purdy, and he is exactly what the 49ers need right now. A little bit of playmaker-ishness sprinkled in with knowing where to go with the football and getting the ball out to the best group of eligibles in the NFL.
The 49ers should be number 1. And that's a team that's playing very well on both sides of the ball. You have some teams like the Dolphins. Yes, they have an offensive explosion, and we see that. But their defense has not been as good as the 49ers. And I think that's why a lot of times, especially heading to the playoffs, let's say 49ers playing the Dallas Cowboys wild card round 2021, people are like, oh, Dallas Cowboys got this high-powered offense. They got this, they got that. And the 49ers come in and they beat them, even though maybe the 49ers didn't have as explosive of an offense. Why? Because they are super balanced. And when I say balanced, I just mean just as good on one side of the ball as they are on the other. And I think this is the first year where I'd say, I know we've seen it statistically where the 49ers might be top 5 in both, but I feel like the 49ers offense is truly just as good as the defense. And I haven't really felt like that in years. I felt like it was like, okay, the defense is really good. They're the top dogs. And then the offense kind of complements that. Well, right now they are doing a great job of complementing each other.
Yeah, and Croc, you're talking about this amazing offense, right, and this amazing defense. Let's not leave out the amazing special teams on this 49ers football team, too, right? Jake Moody, I mean, he's money. The guy doesn't miss kicks. Like, it's fantastic. Wishnowski, the guy has 10 punts on the year. We're going to do a quick wink, wish watch here real quick since we're in it. He's got 10 punts on the year. 7 of those have been inside the 20. That is the highest rate in the NFL. He had another 2 for 3, against the Giants. He's a stud. Moody's a stud. Like, this football team is so well balanced in every facet. They are number 1. They should be number 1. There should be no question about it.
I love Wink just sneaking in the special teams rankings here in all of this too. It's fantastic, and it plays a role. It absolutely plays a role.
Did y'all see the game? I want to say it might have been the Houston Texans, where the fullback ran back a kickoff for a touchdown.
Yeah,
he kind of went back.
A touchdown.
That would not happen.
That was my dream as a fullback. That was my dream. I was always that up back, right? I was right ahead of the tailback who was back there getting the kicks. Every time it came near me, I'd hear him call me off. This guy, I bet he was hearing him getting called off, but he was just like, nope, this is mine. And then that was a dream come true.
That fullback had a little juice to him. He was running by the kicker like he was standing still, and then gave a little like high step at the end to miss that last tackle attempt. Wink, former fullback. Let's hear it from you. I know some people push back with our Juszczyk stuff we talked about yesterday. Even though we didn't really say, we asked the question. It was, is he getting phased out? Question mark. It wasn't. He is getting phased out, by the way. But does Juszczyk take that back? Was that bad stuff? Or did the man make a play? Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Jase Medical and the Jase Case. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected, during emergencies, storms, floods, pandemics we've experienced, right? And maybe you're on a family vacation. You're stuck up somewhere with no cell phone service. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to medication in an emergency. And Jase Case and Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So get the right case for you and your family, depending on what medical situation you might be in, which is different than everybody else. So don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using our code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase medical.com. Use code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com for $20 off.
It's weird, right? Like Juszczyk used to be such a key part of this Kyle Shanahan offense. You'd see it, right? You'd see he'd get multiple targets a game. He'd get a couple carries a game. And now, ever since Christian McCaffrey showed up, Kyle's like, wait a minute, this guy can actually do all that stuff too, and he is much faster and quicker and this and that. So I do feel like Juszczyk has really kind of been pushed out of the offense. He's had like 2 carries on the year. I mean, one. If that, maybe just the one. Yeah. I mean, I do think that he is slowly kind of getting pushed out. I think Christian McCaffrey has everything to do with that.
So I liked how you did that, Peacock. I don't know if you intentionally did it, but you said fullback and you're like, he had some juice, right? So that definitely took my mind straight to Kyle Juszczyk. And I read the comments. We typically kind of stay out of the comments for the most part, but every once in a while I'll read the comments from an episode. And there were a lot of people pushing back on whatever we said about the fullback position in Kyle Juszczyk. But here's one thing that I did realize while reading that. Fans, and I think this typically happens a lot, they overvalue the current players on their team. And what I'm about to say might be a little controversial. But if we're looking at the production, and I understand, I read the comments, and they're saying, Kyle Juszczyk, he does all the little things. Well, guess what? A lot of NFL players do all the little things, right? Like, I don't think you could just say, well, he does all the little things, even though we can't see it. And there's no other fullback in the NFL that does it. I don't think that's what makes Kyle Juszczyk unique. I think what makes Kyle Juszczyk unique and the highest paid fullback in the league has always been his ability to not only be a fullback and be utilized in the run game blocking, he does a great job of that, but also the mismatches and the different things you can do when you split him out, whether he's split out wide, whether he's in a slot, maybe he's in a bunch. You can utilize him as you would another receiver without having to take him off of the field. So then it kind of messes with the defense's personnel that they have in, but they have to respect him as a true pass catcher. But then he's not getting the ball. So now, to me, that kind of takes away a little bit of what he is and why you pay him so much, right? So a lot of people are like, well, he does all these. Most fullbacks block. And they block very well in the run game. Like that's 99% of them. They fullbacks, they block well in the run game.
And if he's going to be just a run blocker, you can find one of those for $900K.
Right. Yeah. Now, he does some other things. I've seen him call out some protections and things like that. Is he the only guy that can line up at fullback and call out protections and see a blitz coming? Especially if it's somebody that can be in your system for a year plus. Like, I don't think he's the only guy that can do that. His biggest value to me is his ability to be a mismatch based on personnel in the passing game. And they're not utilizing him in the passing game. So based off of what we're seeing right now, and I think of how the 49er fans view him, I think Kyle Juszczyk might be the most okay. And I am not a hot take. I am not a hot take guy. Everybody that listens to this, no, I don't do hot takes. I think he's the most overrated 49er based off of how the fans think about him at his position. Not that he's not a great fullback. He's a Pro Bowler every year, all that. I understand that. If they had an all-pro fullback position, he'd be in there. I understand that. But being the highest paid in the league, $5+ million that you're paying him every year, and not utilizing him at all in the passing game, I think you can have a fullback do some of the things, a lot of the things that he's doing right now as the 49ers are using him. If they go next game and they throw him the ball 5 times, then I'd say, okay, now he's back to being not overrated from the fan base. But as his usage right now in the passing game, which makes him extraordinary, which makes him different, they're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope I make that clear because they're going to attack
No. Based on what you said, if you have to make one 49er the most overrated, yeah, you're probably right. It is probably him, right? I mean, in the past we've seen him as that offensive weapon. We haven't seen that guy. Not this season at least. So yeah, I mean, if he's just a fullback and he's getting $5 million a year, that is probably a little bit overrated and definitely overpaid. But it is early in the season, and maybe we will see this, come out a little bit more. And in the past, it's probably happened when the 49ers, are having Debo as tailback. Maybe we are seeing that. He had to kind of fill in the gaps. He was kind of like a super glue or something, that's kind of putting things back together. He's that guy, that utility player, and we haven't needed that so far this season. So maybe hopefully we don't have to see that, and everybody stays healthy all year. But Juice has, I think, kind of been that guy in the past.
I want to go to one of our listeners on YouTube who I think put it best. When the 49ers need to utilize him, he'll be there and he can make those plays. So right now, that's what you're paying for. Is that enough? I think that's an off-season discussion for them to figure out with the roster. Can we go veteran minimum? Can we go rookie, fullback if we're mostly going to use this guy? We don't need the OW aspect of anymore because we have too many OWs as it is.
My question is, when you, quote unquote, when you need him to do that thing, what exactly is that? And is that something that Juwan Jennings can't do?
Sure.
Braden Willis hasn't been utilized at all as a fullback, even in camp. Like, they're not even, I don't think they're even trying. I don't think it's on their mind. He's a tight end and that's it, which surprises me because I thought his skill set would have crossed over well to be like, okay, if Juszczyk gets hurt in a game, who's going to take some fullback reps? I would think that, and maybe it's just easy, or maybe he's done more than we've seen in camp and in preseason. But he hasn't been on the field much. He got some garbage time. But Braden Willis is an interesting one because I think there could be some crossover there. He's a guy who could obviously catch the ball as a tight end. He could block for you. Maybe he's the next OW for the 49ers offense on the cheap.
My question was, we're saying when he needs, is it a catch that he's making or is it a block? Because like I said, you can find guys to block. So is it, hey, we put him in this position, we mess with the personnel of the defense, and then he makes this catch that nobody else on the 49ers could make? From based on the position that he plays, which is, whatever it is, the Y or the S or whatever they call it.
Yeah. It's
what makes it something that somebody else can't do. That's what I'm asking.
Kyle could sneak another fullback uncovered to the backside of a play, right? So if it's Kyle getting him wide open, then that's one aspect that you don't need the best fullback in the league. Of course, you want the best fullback in the league that can do the most for you, but we're talking, about team building here more than, what Juszczyk's worth is, because he's obviously a good player, but what is he doing right now that is going to make the 49ers continue to want to have the most expensive fullback in the league?
He's not a secret anymore, right? Like for a long time, it was just like that wheel route, where Juszczyk or the the little cross over the middle, the Texas or whatever that's called, where he'd come out of the backfield and he'd make a catch and he'd be unguarded because everybody was like, why am I going to guard the fullback right now? But now, a few years into the Kyle Shanahan system, I think everybody kind of knows when Juszczyk's on the field, you got to account for him. You got to make sure he's covered because he can go up and make some pretty great catches. We've seen it in his time with the 49ers.
At Eric_Crocker, by the way, he's the one that called Kyle Juszczyk overrated. You guys can talk to him. You know who's underrated?
Overrated based on his usage right now. If they start to utilize him, then okay, let's go.
Sure.
Well, the thing about Croc is he's a DB, so he's really good with the back pedal, right? So watch him back pedal out. You know who is underrated, guys? Jim Tomsula as a head coach, now a championship winning head coach for the Rhein Fire of the European League Football, ELF, I believe it's called, the ELF League, European League of Football. Coach of the year, undefeated 14-0, Rhein Fire head coach Jim Tomsula hoisting the trophy. What do you guys think? Jim Tomsula, a guy I really like. He went from imagine if Chris Kocurek just all of a sudden got thrust into the head coach role, right? That's what happened with Jim Tomsula. Went from a really good D-line coach. He's still well respected in the entire league as a D-line coach, one of the best D-line coaches in the league. What he missed out on was getting this head coach experience before he became a head coach. Maybe now he'll be back on the radar as a head coach somewhere, college, NFL. Congrats to him. But kind of feel like he got a little bad rap with the 49ers because he was thrust into a situation that was pretty terrible.
Yeah, you said pretty terrible. It was
the worst. Extremely terrible.
Yeah, worst thing I've ever seen. Right, I call it the mass exodus. The mass exodus. They lost anyone and everyone that was really important for the most part. There were a couple stragglers, Colin Kaepernick, Navarro Bowman. But for the most part, I mean, when you start just throwing out names of Frank Gore and Justin Smith, and then Alden Smith got cut, and Patrick Willis, he retires, and you thought you could build around Borland, and then he retires, and maybe offensive line, we're good there. No, we're not, because you lose Anthony Davis to retirement, and then you lose Upati, and Frank Gore's gone. Like, you just lost everyone, head coach, DBs, even guys that weren't like big names, but Terrell Brown gone, Culliver gone. Like, you lost everybody. Then it's like, you know what? By the way, Tomsula, go win a bunch of games. And it's like, I can only win 5 with this team because everybody left. And it's like, well, sorry, you can't coach in the league. You're not good enough. And they fired him. If you're telling me that you want to fire him because you got the sense that he's not the CEO type that we're seeing from Kyle Shanahan, right? Like Kyle Shanahan, he's truly a CEO. It's almost like he was born to be a head coach in the NFL. And maybe Tomsula didn't have that vibe around him. I understand it. But clearly he went somewhere else and said, you know what? I can do a dang good job coaching football. And not only did he coach, they went undefeated, had an extremely large margin of victory, which was 27
points.
27 points. And at that level, it's hard to have a team that's just that much better than everybody else. To me, it has to be about something he's doing with coaching, etc. And he's doing that at an extremely high level to go undefeated and have that win margin and win the championship. So shout out to Tomsula.
Yeah, agreed, because he did get a bad rap. He came in, tough situation, and then they fired him. And in my opinion, when they brought in Chip Kelly, the 49ers got worse. So maybe Tomsula was the reason they won 5 games instead of winning 2 games, right? I mean, let's look back on this maybe with different set of eyes now based on what he's doing going forward. And exactly what Croc said, like, that was a tough thing for him to take over. He lost half his team.
Before we go, Wink, do you have a prediction for week 4? It is the San Francisco 49ers hosting the Arizona Cardinals, the number 1 power ranked, according to the Locked On host, San Francisco 49ers hosting the no longer number 32. They're number 29 now on the power rankings. The Arizona Cardinals, they went out and beat the Dallas Cowboys. Did we completely underrate the Arizona Cardinals coming into the year?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no, that this was the best game that they had all season long. They gave it their all. Dallas probably overlooked them, kind of took them for granted a little bit as like, this is a W, and they got punched in the mouth and didn't get up. The Niners have a long week. They played the Thursday game. They got all that extra time to prepare for Arizona, saw all their good stuff they used against the Cowboys. It's a second straight game at home for the 49ers. I think this is going to be handled pretty easily.
I love it. Mini bye at home. The Cardinals went and won a game against the Cowboys just to make sure the 49ers don't go trap game and overlook them looking ahead at those Cowboys. And that's some important tape to watch for the 49ers and 49ers fans. If you want to watch the next 2 49ers opponents, they played each other last week in week number 3. So check out that Cards-Cowboys game. Of course, Croc and I will be back here with you every single day, breaking down everything going on with your San Francisco 49ers, getting ready for the Cardinals in week 4. We've got a Thursday crossover coming with our guy Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals as well. So thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate you, Wink. Appreciate all the listeners, whether you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.
See ya.
Subscribe to this video.